Hello, you're listening to Covid-tinted Glasses with Georgina. I'll be speaking to people from all around the world about their unique experiences of the pandemic, the good, the bad, the beautiful and the downright ugly, covering topics like friendship, family, travel, work, mental health and finding love. If you'd like to join me for a chat, then get in touch at georgina_podcast@outlook.com. Hello and welcome to Covid-tinted Glasses. I'm Georgina and joining me is Kirsty van den Bulk, founder of Opening Doors Consultancy. Hi Kirsty.
Hello, how are you doing?
Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. So why don't you give the listeners a little introduction to yourself, your company and where you live in the UK and your family setup.
So I live in rural Oxfordshire and actually it's really beautiful. I'm very lucky. I have a train line that goes past every 15 minutes. So my daughter loves that. We have a 5-year-old daughter who's at school and I set up Opening Doors Consultancy a year ago. And the reason for this was I was looking for something that I could fit around school hours. There's a bit more of a story to it because actually I was supposed to be moving to the Netherlands. And then my husband got a different job that kept us in the UK. So we didn't go to the Netherlands, but I'd already resigned from my job. And so I looked at what my skill set was and decided to go for helping people speak with confidence.
And we should mention that basically this business was launched in April last year, so 2020. So that was after the initial lockdown. So it sounds like prior to that, you'd had quite big changes that were about to happen, but then didn't. Then lockdown happened. Then you launched your business. Wow, that must have been kind of interesting time. Tell us more.
So I finished my last job on the 1st of April, and my launch date was the 2nd of April. But of course, we're in lockdown, and our daughter needed us. And when I say our daughter needed us, I mean our daughter needed us. She was 3 at the time, and she is absolutely brilliant, but she doesn't like change and she can't handle it. And yeah, so I had to put everything on hold, and I put everything on hold because of her. So my husband had started a new job and it was very demanding, and she needed full-time attention because she started to develop anxiety and started to show signs of ADHD. She doesn't have ADHD, but the anxiety of losing all of her friends at nursery really took its toll.
Wow. And she was, did you say 3?
She was 3 at the time, yeah.
Wow. I just don't think about children that age, having anxiety, but of course they do because they're little human beings, aren't they? So that must have been really, really difficult for you because you didn't have the additional support around you to ask for help.
Yeah. So she's got a special status. I won't go into that today because we have to protect her. So anyone who's listening to this will understand what her status is. And what comes with that is a background of trauma. And we have to look after her and put her first. So she is the light of our lives, but also who we protect. So yeah, anxiety was incredible and very, very difficult to deal with. And it's when she has a breakdown, it's not like a normal birth child. You can work it out. Having a breakdown, it's a lot harder because she doesn't understand where all of this fear and anxiety is coming from. So they talk about the first 1,001 days in a child's development, and that's really key. And it's actually how we focus our parenting on her. So yeah, she had to be the priority.
And I think every parent will be listening will know that 3-year-olds of any description, when they throw a peely wobbly, it is quite dramatic anyway. So adding on top of that anxiety, it must have been very difficult. Yeah. So you stopped Opening Doors Consultancy. You had to put it on hold. You put it on ice, so to speak. And then when could you start working on it again? Because that must start in
January. Yeah, it's January. Yeah, so this year, the reason I couldn't do it before was she'd started school and she was in school, out of school, in school, out of school. I'm sure loads of people were in the same situation. Lots of cases going on. Thankfully, she only had to isolate for 1 week, and she hasn't had COVID. In fact, neither have we. None of us have, because we're doing the ONS study, so we can say we're a COVID-free house. But it's been, it had to go on hold. So I had lots of things burning in the background. But what was really good was that break gave me the time to adapt what I was doing, because my coaching sessions are face to face. You know, I look at people's body language. I train people on this. So can you imagine when you can only see head and shoulders? People are tapping their feet, and I can't see that. So I can only do a limited amount of work on screen. So I set up a video conferencing training session.
Right. And I could tell you right now, I'm clutching my hands together. I've got my legs crossed, and I start stroking my hand because I get a bit nervous in these interviews. And I'm kind of going like this, which people on the podcast, basically, I'm kind of rubbing my thumb in my fingers and kind of clasping my hands together. So I'm now going to uncross my legs and relax my arms. Yes. So, I hadn't thought about that, because obviously, as you quite rightly say, just seeing from kind of mid-chest upwards, you're not really seeing the rest of the body. And, of course, it affects your shoulders, just thinking about it, your neck and your posture and everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you're tapping your foot, your shoulder's going to start wobbling. So all of these things, particularly when you're presenting, whether you're on camera or off camera, things like your hands. I can tell you to keep your hands out of shot because they do this. So I can say keep your hands out of shot. But if you're fiddling with your hands, just me doing this, you can see there's movement going on. That movement is distracting. So I set up a whole series of videos which are online, but I also started taking clients on video conferencing techniques and how to combat fatigue, actually, because we're spending so much time on video calls. So I set up a whole series and help people overcome the fatigue of video conferencing.
Yes, so we should give everyone a little. So the Opening Doors Consultancy is basically, the strapline is helping you speak with confidence. That's the kind of main idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you just mentioned us getting video conferencing fatigue. Oh my God. Like, I refuse to go on any Zoom calls with, catching up with friends anymore. And it's not like I've seen them a lot of them in person, but I cannot do anymore because I have got fatigue. I mean, this is different because we're having a conversation and it's discussing all, the interesting things that have happened over the past year. But you don't realize how much it affects you, kind of having to do it so often. And what kind of tips have you been giving to people to help them?
So a lot of people have been using Zoom backgrounds, and people don't realize that their head pixelates and disappears into that background. So the person who's watching it is watching you in and out. So your eyes are getting tired. And I'll just pick up a pen. This is my favorite one. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah, it's quite painful.
So I know that that's a pen, but you don't. So if you don't know what the pen is, your brain is going, what's that noise? What is that? And so you've stopped thinking, you've stopped being able to concentrate on what you're doing. So I'm sitting here with a backdrop. The reason for the backdrop is it's not pixelating, it's not giving you eye strain. I'm trying to keep things as quiet as possible, so any background noise, if I did have background noise, and one of the things we had a couple of weeks ago was this drilling noise, so I just told my clients, I'm really sorry, there are builders outside, so they could know exactly what it is. If you're sitting in a meeting face to face and there's a noise going on, you know what it is. So just tell the people what the noise is. The other thing I do is I tell people to set their lights. So I'm sitting here with a light above my camera, but if I didn't have the backdrop, I would have drawn my curtains, but I can't draw my curtains. And the reason I can't do that is my curtains are striped and patterned. So I tell people to not look at the curtains and draw them if they can, but if they're really patterned, look at a backdrop. These are really, really cheap. It's just a photographer's backdrop, something to alleviate the eye strain, which is what people have. I tell people to practice their presentation, and that's really, really important. Just because you're in a video call, you need to practice it, because your voice will go up, your voice will go down. or you'll be too enthusiastic, you'll be too fast. There are so many different things. So practice. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough. And that's one of my strap lines is, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough.
I think that's great advice, because I find when I'm nervous, like particularly when I'm speaking to people I don't know at all, I kind of go, "Brrr," and even I don't know what I'm actually saying. So how on earth they would understand is a different thing. So there's some really good advice. And you're so right about eye strain, because you don't realise that looking at a computer, it takes a lot of concentration to concentrate on what's happening. Your brain is having to learn how to interpret different things, and it's just so being overpowered with all this information. And yeah, so that's really, so basically simplify things down. If there's a noise, tell them about it, and yeah, try and think about what you're going to say first, and practice that. That's really fantastic advice. So why? So we now know about the company Opening Doors Consultancy, and we know that you did launch in April, but then it had to be put on hold till January. So why did you want to help people to speak with confidence? Kind of, where did that kind of interest come from?
So when I was 4.5, I had an operation, and this operation helped me to speak. So I was born with a hole at the base of the nasal pharynx. So I don't have a uvula. It's very exciting. So that was cut out and put over the hole. Then I had to learn to speak. So I went for speech therapy. I hated it. I cannot tell you how much sitting there going feather was going to do my head in. But there was a drama class, and this woman was just amazing. So I started drama classes in Tadworth in Surrey, the Grove School of Dancing, and I worked my way through my LAMDA, and eventually at the age of 8, I think I spoke for the first time in public. In fact, no, I'm lying, that I was 6, so that's the old age coming in. So I was 6 and I spoke in public for the first time with an A.A. Milne poem, and then I went and did my first professional advert at the age of 8. And then I continued into the acting business, and I loved it. So I was very, very lucky. I got a scholarship to a drama school. I went all the way through arts educational. I went off, had a brilliant career, really enjoyed it, but then realised I wanted to buy a house. So I was sitting at home one day and realised I was going to end up in an actors benevolent home. So I decided to take stock, went back to university. So I did a degree in performance and dramatic art. And at that point, even though I knew I was dyslexic, it had never been a tick box. And I put an essay in, and it came back, and I cannot tell you how awful this was. It came back with nothing but red pen all over it, with the words of sloppy and doesn't care. And of course I cared. I was just dyslexic and dyspraxic. So I had a massive breakdown. This is before I met my beautiful husband, but I had a massive breakdown that is, they call it a dyslexic breakdown. It's a bit like my daughter's tantrum. I just couldn't cope because I couldn't focus because of the red pen. So I went off and got tested. And yes, I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic. I couldn't redo the essay, unfortunately, but they passed it once they got the tick box to say that I was dyslexic and dyspraxic, because the content was fine. But to give you an idea, the smile of her hypothesis, I can't even say it, the smile of the hypothesis, no, I'm not going to say it, but it's a line from HMS Pinafore, I think, and I wrote it down as it's supposed to be the square of the no, it's not going to come out. Anyway, I wrote down the smile of the hippopotamus, which gives you an idea, because I copy words rather than actually spell them. So I didn't realise how bad I really was. So
yeah, so you replaced hippopotamus with the actual word, which I probably won't be able to say, hypothalamus, blah blah. Yeah, so basically it was the wrong word, and you didn't even notice.
I had no idea. So finding out I was dyslexic, finding out that it had been something that held me back all my life, and I didn't realise it was holding me back.
And how old were you when you found out? Just out of interest.
37.
Wow. So you'd struggled through 37 years and not even known. So that must have been a real kind of light bulb kind of moment, and put it all in perspective. Or did you feel a bit angry?
I was mixed emotions. I was angry that my school hadn't recognised it, because as a child I'd been sent to a special school for children with learning difficulties. So why hadn't they picked it up when I went to my secondary school? I was frustrated for the amount of times that I'd struggled to learn lines and I couldn't as an actor. I think it's hysterical that I actually managed to be a professional dancer because I'm dyspraxic, and honestly, that door frame is mine. So, but I wanted people to know that just because you've got a learning difficulty, you've had to overcome things like not being able to speak, it shouldn't hold you back. Yeah. So there are thousands of people who don't want to speak in public, come on camera, whatever the reason is, they've got a fear, so they hide. And I wanted to set up a company that was for the everyday person. There's loads of companies out there who focus on public speaking and get you to be a TED talker. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the hairdresser who has to go and stand in front of a room and talk at an awards ceremony. And I want to help them have the confidence to do it. I want to help the business professional who's suddenly been told, you've got to do this presentation, and they go, I don't want to. And I go, well, hey, I can give you the techniques and the toolbox to get you over the line. And that's the kind of client I'm looking for.
That's really fantastic. So the likes of Joe Biden, who probably got a huge amount of help, they will have to go elsewhere. Although we do, that's fine. He's doing very well. So just thinking about, so how did you transition your business from face-to-face to online? What things did you do to set that up?
So it's networking. It's the good old Facebook page. It's the LinkedIn page. I've just started on Instagram. The first thing that happened to me on Instagram was somebody tried to have a date with me, which I thought was hysterical. I was like, who are you? But we got over that. And so I post my videos on Instagram. I try to just get my word out there. What I want people to understand is I'm not looking to push you to buy from me. So I've done a whole series of top tips because I want people to find the stuff that they could find if they typed into Google, but I want to give it to them free in less than 2 minutes so they can go away, try it at home. Because to get onto camera, the first thing you've got to do is overcome the fear of just the camera. So I'm giving top tips for free because I want people to know, well, I'm Kirsty, you can trust me. I'm not looking to push you to do what you can't do. I just want to help you feel confident and comfortable in your space. Find your own voice.
Find your own voice. That's the problem, isn't it? Going from face-to-face to online, because being able to portray, you're Kirsty and you're going to help them find their voice online is, I'd imagine, harder than face-to-face. But I guess through doing the videos, you're helping people to create, to build a relationship with you and the trust, and to just start their journey.
And I'm also in partnership with a company called Security on Screen. So Peter came to me in, I think it was October last year. We both worked in the physical security market. So he saw my stuff and went, I know you, I've seen you present, I know what you're talking about. And I went, well, yeah, kind of, because when I presented in front of Peter, the microphone broke. So we were at a large trade show. Milling around was all of the press, and we had to present a CCTV or a digital security camera. And this one had 5 lenses, but I had no mic. So I had to jump into full performance mode, but I held it and I did it. And at that point, people went, she knows what she's doing. So I went into partnership with Peter in October, November. He launched his Security on Screen, I think, November, December time. And now we work together. So I help his clients who go on camera get over that initial fear. So I do a variety of different techniques.
That's really interesting. So let's get back to the pandemic, so to speak. So what's the thing? Is there anything that you've really missed during this the pandemic that you want to start doing again?
So we've been really lucky, I have to be honest. Being that our daughter's only 5, the second pandemic was better because of, third lockdown, because we had the play parks. So thank goodness for that. So that was okay. But we started walking more. So I think what we're going to look at is the positives of the pandemic rather than the negatives. And the reason for that is we never really got to go out. It's us and our daughter. So we didn't go to the pub, or if we did, it was for one drink and home. we didn't really go for dinner because we'd have to get a babysitter. And our family, my surname, we've got one family in the Netherlands and the other family are down in Arundel. So it's impossible for us to just go out. So I'm going to talk about the positives of what it's given us. And it's given us a real close community. Our village has really bounded together. I cannot tell you how close we are as a community. Some of the things we did was we decorated. We have the Causeway. It's very famous, so you'll know exactly where I live. And we decorated it with crochet and birds, and we all made things to make the village come alive. So we've bounded together. All of the children are all signed up for cricket, which sounds really crazy, but it's one mum who's rallied around and got us all together. So I'm going to talk about the positives that it's given me rather than what I've missed, because I would have lost out on all this community if we hadn't actually had the lockdown. So it's very different. The pandemic took a lot away, but it also gave me a lot.
Yeah. And the Causeway, just to explain to some people who don't live in this country, what is the Causeway?
So the Causeway is an old, I don't even know when it goes back to. It was built by monks, and it is little bricks that have been put together to create a path on a raised bit of earth, which actually runs along the side of the allotments and the road now, because that's where the Ginge Brook used to run. So it gave the monks somewhere to walk to have dried feet.
So, and that you decorated that with crochet and stuff like that to make it more, to feel more like home, really, and to stamp the community's identity, I guess, on it. Stamp is the wrong word, but that sounds quite like violence. Stamp, but
we developed Blighty, good old Blighty spirit. That's what happened in my village. It was very strange.
Well, actually, even in London, my street has a huge community spirit as well. And like leaving my front door is I see people. It's very difficult to get to the end of the street if you're in a hurry, because you always see somebody that you know. So I think that's a huge benefit. I think that we all kind of got. But you're right. I think just going outside is just a fantastic thing to be able to do. And when we were locked down for only 1 hour a day, I know some people didn't just go for 1 hour. You started to feel like, I want to go. So do you now do longer walks with your daughter? I mean, she's only 5, so I guess she can't really go so far.
Well, she's been amazing. So before she was 4, she was cycling without stabilizers. So she did so much and learned so much in the lockdown. At the same time, she struggled with the anxiety, but I taught her, obviously I'm from an arts background. So again, the village, we created the fairy doors, which are in the copse. And that's a little wood that has been donated to the village. And we went up there every day and I named them. And I talked to her about the story of Midsummer Night's Dream. I had to very quickly realize that I had to refer to a very important character as Robin Goodfellow, because the PUCK does not work on the mouth of a 3-year-old. But I described everything. So, yeah, she knows the story of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, that's fantastic. So she got that out of it. And do you think actually, put aside the anxiety, it sounds like she benefited hugely from having an intensive one-on-one kind of learning with you over it was about, 9 months, really?
Yeah, the biggest issue was getting her to detach from me when she started going to school. And I think anyone listening to this who's got a child of school age will identify. The child becomes so attached to the central caregiver, in my case it was me, that suddenly being torn, and it's not that they're torn, but removed from mummy to go to school, it was very difficult to begin with. It's difficult anyway for a child starting reception, but it's even harder when they've been so locked in. But you also see that children returning to school, it's been interesting because she stayed in during the last lockdown, and actually she struggled when the children came back because suddenly she was overwhelmed, too much noise, she's got used to the small group, and she misses her friends from the small group. So it's very interesting, and I'd love to see the research on how the pandemic has affected all the children. And I see it down the play park as well. The older children, their secondary schools, they're struggling, and it's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's the pandemic. But to have lost that contact, that social network that they relied on, it's had an impact.
Yeah, and I've got a friend who's a teacher, and she was saying that she taught all the way through in the school, and the smaller groups worked really well. And then obviously when everyone else came back, by the time they got to the holidays, there were little fights breaking out, because of course they're not used to having such big groups. Yeah. They got out of use, they stopped getting used to these bigger groups, which were very normal before, and they started to get used to much smaller groups. And so the transition to go to the bigger groups was quite hard. And this was in lower reception years, so much younger children as well. So yeah, the teenagers, I just feel for them, and the university students as well. I mean, I spoke to Amber, and she hasn't even been into uni for the whole, since she started last September. I mean, she's been at Newcastle, but in the city, she's at Northumbria University, but she hasn't actually been into college. So that's just crazy. I mean, I think that we will learn in the future kind of the benefits and the things that have not worked for children of all ages and young adults as well, won't we?
Yeah.
So speaking to about your immediate family, so you've got the Netherlands connection, and I've been a bit jealous about people living in the Netherlands. I'm no joke. I've got a few friends, and one of them particularly seems to be flying around Europe on holiday. I mean, not around Europe. I think she went to, I want to say Lanzarote or Gran Canaria or somewhere like that to go surfing. And I was just not happy. I was very happy for her, but I was a bit like, no. But then at the same time, when she returned, she was sharing pictures about her first hug with her father, and they covered themselves in plastic from head to toe. And she was, so she could hug him again. So then I stopped being so jealous. But I mean, how has it been for your family in the Netherlands?
So they've had COVID. So they've had COVID, and it's been really hard. We've had to buy stuff from the Dutch shop. That was just because my husband has to have certain things, and my daughter has to have chocolate sprinkles on her breakfast. So we had to source Dutch food. But it's been really difficult because we haven't seen Oma and Opa since March last year. We do see my parents, but not very often. Again, we haven't seen my parents since before Christmas because they're in their 70s, and Dad's fully vaccinated, but Mum's only half vaccinated. Oma and Opa have only just been vaccinated, and I think people forget. So I was vaccinated because I've got asthma, and I'm turning 50 on Saturday. Yay! But I know, gosh, how did that happen?
Happy birthday!
Thank you. But it's the first time I've said it out loud. But Oma and Opa only got vaccinated last week. Their son is being vaccinated today. And I think that kind of puts things into perspective. Our cases in the UK are so low in comparison with the rest of Europe. And it's been a worry. I'm not going to say it's not. It's been a massive concern. We can't see them. Our daughter doesn't like going on Zoom calls. In fact, it stresses her out. So we haven't been able to do any video calls, or very limited. And it's been really difficult because they haven't seen that she's grown 6 or 7 centimeters in a year. And it's going to be a real shock when they come back. So I don't even know if we're going to get to see them this year. So it's that takes its toll. It really does. So
yes,
it's tough.
Because I mean, the advantage of having family in the Netherlands before was that it was so close and that you could get there relatively easily. And now, of course, we have to think about things a lot more carefully before traveling anywhere, because I guess if your partner went there to see them, then you'd have to, quarantine, and I don't even know if he's even allowed. So that's the grandparents, isn't it? Oma and
Opa.
Oma and Opa. Yeah. Grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my Dutch is not
good. Don't worry. My Dutch is terrible, but I can understand enough. and Oma doesn't speak much English, so it's a very interesting time when we all get together. But my husband gets very tired because obviously he's translating between Dutch and English, English to Dutch, and eventually just goes, it's very funny. So he'll suddenly turn to me and speak to me in full Dutch, and I go, really? Really, honey?
And you're like, I think that's time to terminate the phone call. The other week they had, when I went to celebrate, it was Orange Day parade, but it was the Queen's Day, but now it's the King's Day.
King's Day. Yeah.
And it looked like there was a lot of celebrations still happening, obviously with younger people. But I don't know if your partner's parents celebrated it at all, or they did in a more private, safe kind of manner.
So they don't really. I mean, we've done Queen and King's Day. I'm wearing orange today, so that's quite funny. And it is crazy. It really is. You've never seen anything like it. New Year is even crazier, to be honest. They let off firecrackers, and it's and I'm saying firecrackers, not fireworks, firecrackers. And you're literally dancing in the street trying to avoid them. But no, they were actually on a campsite. That's what Oma and Oprah did. They went off to their caravan.
Very good. I think that's probably the best place to be out in the countryside and relaxing. So is there any advice you would give yourself now, if you could go back in time 12 months, about how to cope with what's happened? Because obviously none of us knew this was going to happen. It was beyond our imagination, really.
So stop. You don't have to do it all. I think that's the advice I give myself is you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough. And I really do mean that, not just in my business, but also with the way I parent my daughter. There have been good days, there's been bad days, there's been days where I've cried, there's been days where she's screamed, I hate you, for 25 minutes and then said, I'm going to destroy your love for me. And I've gone, I love you, I love you, I love you. Yeah, it's not been easy. So I would say, you don't have to be perfect, just be good enough. And a quote that I've got from a very good friend of mine called David is, every night's a Friday night. So I love that. Every night's a Friday night, because you know what? You wake up the next morning and you start again.
So you just enjoy yourself, let your hair down and relax, basically.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just going to... There was points where I'd put so much pressure on myself because obviously everything went online. So you had to shop online. And I can remember waking up at 4:00 in the morning to do the shopping to make sure we had food, because that was my responsibility, because, Dennis was working so hard. So I tried to be perfect. I tried to do it all. I tried to keep our daughter quiet. I tried to keep her happy. I had activities planned every day. And you know what? You just burn out. So I had to take my foot off the gas and go, it's okay to fail. It really is okay to have a bad day, and it's okay. You just have to be, and it's something that really does resonate with me, is you just have to be good enough. So I do really have that as a strong thing in my head all the time.
Yeah, well, that's some really, really good advice. So where can people hear more about Opening Doors Consultancy and connect with you or look at your YouTube videos?
So everything's posted on my Opening Doors Consultancy LinkedIn page. They're also posted a couple of days later on Facebook and Instagram. The reason for that is my network of people, because of what I did, are on LinkedIn. So I post everything first on LinkedIn. So they can either join me on my personal page or they can join me on Opening Doors Consultancy. As I get more followers, I will then start to create a group that will eventually probably be on Facebook, but we're not there yet, and I do mean that, for my birthday, I'm getting my vlogging kit, which I think is hysterical, turning 50 and ask for a vlogging kit. And I will do a series on videos on why you should do live and why you should record. I think that's really important, because there's a lot of pressure on people to go live, but actually sometimes if you're doing something technical, go record rather than live, and there'll be a video on that next week.
Well, that's very good advice, because I can tell you what's just happened to me is my cheaper kind of earphones, the battery's gone, but I think I've just managed to solve the problem, and
unmuted myself. They muted me. So hopefully we'll be able to hear the end of this interview. So good experiment with the earphones, I think. Kirsty, thank you so much. It's been really lovely to chat to you. Please say hi to your partner and your daughter, and I hope you have a really good rest of the day. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.